a quiet village surrounded by rolling hills and clear streams, there lived a boy named Umar. He was a cheerful and adventurous child who loved playing outside, exploring nature, and spending time with his family. Every evening after playing soccer with his best friends, Zaid and Hassan, Umar would sit with his grandfather and listen to beautiful stories about the prophets and the teachings of Islam. His grandfather always told him, "Prayer is like a shield, my son. It protects our hearts from fear and fills our souls with light." Umar loved these stories, and he always tried his best to pray on time. But one evening, something changed. That day, Umar had played longer than usual. He and his friends had been chasing the soccer ball until their legs ached. The sun had long set by the time Umar reached home, exhausted. As he stepped into his room, his body felt so heavy that he could barely keep his eyes open. "I'll pray later," he mumbled to himself as he collapsed onto his bed. His eyelids shut, and within moments he drifted into a deep sleep. He didn't realize that he had forgotten to make ablution. He didn't realize that he had missed his prayer. In his sleep, Umar suddenly found himself standing in the middle of a dark, endless desert. The sky was a strange shade of grey, and there were no stars, no moon, just an eerie silence. The air was thick, heavy, and cold. Umar turned around, trying to figure out where he was. The sand beneath his feet felt damp, as if it had rained, but there was no sign of water anywhere. A chilling wind howled through the empty landscape, carrying whispers that seemed to come from nowhere. Then, from the distance, he heard a voice. "Umar?" It was deep, hollow, and echoed unnaturally. Umar's breath hitched. His heartbeat pounded in his ears. He spun around, searching for the source of the voice. Nothing. The desert stretched endlessly, and there was no sign of another person. Yet the voice came again, closer this time. "Umar, why have you forgotten?" A shiver ran down his spine. The air grew colder, the ground beneath him started to crack, and from the shadows a figure began to emerge. It was tall, too tall, wrapped in darkness. Its glowing red eyes stared straight at him. Umar felt his feet freeze in place. He wanted to run, but his legs wouldn't move. The figure took a step forward, then another. With each step, the ground beneath Umar trembled. The whispers grew into eerie laughter. Umar's breath came in short gasps. His body was frozen, yet his mind screamed at him to escape. "Who? Who are you?" he managed to whisper. The figure didn't answer. It raised a hand, shrouded in shadows, pointing directly at him. "You forgot. You abandoned your shield." The words sent chills through his entire body. Umar's mind raced. My shield, he thought. Then, in a flash, he remembered. His prayer. He had skipped his Maghrib prayer. He had gone to sleep without seeking Allah's protection. The realization struck him like lightning. Is this happening because I didn't pray? As if in response to his thoughts, the dark figure suddenly rushed toward him. The laughter turned into a deafening roar. The wind howled furiously, lifting the sand into a storm. Umar squeezed his eyes shut. His lips trembled as he tried to remember what his grandfather had told him. When you are afraid, seek refuge in Allah. Desperate, Umar forced the words out of his mouth. A'udu billahi min ash-shaytan ir-rajim. The moment he uttered the words, a powerful light burst around him. The dark figure let out a monstrous scream and staggered back, covering its face as if the light burned it. Umar took a deep breath and shouted again, this time louder. "Ya Allah, protect me!" Everything around him vanished. Umar's eyes flew open. He sat up in bed, his entire body shaking, drenched in sweat. His heart pounded against his chest as he looked around. He was back in his room. The soft glow of the lamp near his bookshelf brought him comfort. The nightmare was over, but it had felt so real. He threw the blanket off and rushed out of his room. His mother was still awake, sitting in the living room, reading the Quran. She looked up as he entered, immediately noticing the fear in his eyes. "Umar, what's wrong?" she asked gently. Tears welled up in his eyes. He sat beside her and told her everything. The strange desert, the shadowy figure, the terrifying whispers. His mother listened carefully, then took his hand in hers. "My dear, do you know what this dream means?" she asked softly. Umar shook his head. "It was just a nightmare, right?" His mother smiled warmly. "Sometimes, when we forget our duties to Allah, our hearts become weak, and Shaitan finds ways to trouble us." Her words made Umar's stomach sink. "I forgot to pray, Mama. I was so tired that I just fell asleep." His mother nodded. "That's why you felt unprotected. Do you remember what the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, taught us? Before sleeping we should always pray, recite Ayat al-Kursi, and seek Allah's protection." Umar wiped his eyes. "What should I do now?" His mother gently guided him toward the sink. First, let's make ablution and pray. Then, before sleeping, we will recite the last three surahs of the Quran together. After making ablution, Umar stood beside his mother and prayed. As he bowed and prostrated, he felt a deep sense of peace wash over him, as if a heavy weight had been lifted from his heart. When they finished, his mother sat beside him and recited Ayat al-Kursi. Umar followed along, feeling calmer with each verse. She then smiled and tucked him back into bed. Now you are protected, my love. Sleep with a heart full of faith, and no shadow can ever harm you. Umar closed his eyes, feeling warm and safe. This time, he didn't dream of shadows or whispers. Instead, he saw himself playing in a bright, beautiful meadow, surrounded by light, laughter, and the peaceful sound of Quranic recitation. The next morning, Umar woke up refreshed and grateful. The first thing he did was make ablution and pray Fajr, feeling a newfound sense of strength in his heart. At breakfast, his grandfather smiled at him. You look different today, Umar. More peaceful. Umar grinned. I learned an important lesson, Grandpa. Prayer is truly a shield. I'll never go to bed without it again. His grandfather patted his shoulder proudly. That's the spirit, my son. A heart connected to Allah is never afraid. Thank you for watching. We hope this story reminded you of the importance of prayer and faith in overcoming life's challenges. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.